Hi, this is Kyle with Music is a Verb, and on today's episode of Really Cool Harmony, I'm going to talk about Jingle Bell Rock. Now, if we're talking Christmas music, there's really no shortage of beautiful harmony and fascinating, haunting chord changes to choose from. If I just take one example in I'll Be Home for Christmas, they kind of blow my mind open just on chord number 2. These songs come from a sort of golden age of jazz-influenced songwriting, and as a result, they have a ton of spicy chords and interesting modulations in the canon. But I wanted to talk about a song that isn't really thought of as a bastion of complex songwriting. Instead, Jingle Bell Rock takes its interesting harmonic devices and note choices and weaves them right into the fabric of the song so that everyone's singing right along with them, none the wiser. Let's take a look.
Chord 1, the 5/7 sharp 5.
5/7 sharp 5, or 5/7 augmented, is just a fancy way of describing a chord that you've heard a bunch before. The Beatles used it a ton, but even they were just kind of ripping it from tons of blues songs that used it before them. What's less common is using the spicy altered note of that chord, which is the flat 3 of the key, as the melody note in the song. What's even less common is leaping to that spicy altered note from a large interval away. What's even less common, more less common, is leaping to that altered note by a large interval from another extended spicy note. And that's exactly what happens here. The chord here is a G7, but the melody that lands on that chord is an A, giving us a G9 right off the bat, a chord that sounds something like this. It's actually a beautiful chord all on its own. But then that A note has begun, jumps down to this altered D sharp note, giving us that 5/7 sharp 5. This is probably the most characteristic note in the entire song, and it gives you that beautiful crunchy sound that makes you want to growl your voice while you sing along. And the jingle hop has begun. I love this example as a music teacher and someone who studies music learning because it takes something that on paper, by all accounts, should be extremely difficult and complex to understand and to execute, and yet everybody and their mother can perform it flawlessly every single time the song comes on. This is how learning works. Our brains are hardwired to interpret things using prior experience. So complexity can really only ever be judged as a function of how familiar we are with the material. The more familiar we are with it, the less complex. What's even greater is that this familiar material creates a comparison point for new learning. So the next time that you hear that beautiful crunchy sound, you can either consciously or unconsciously group it together with this one, creating a connection that helps you to better audiate that sound every time you hear it in the future. You're going to better understand it, better be able to improvise over it, and be able to better perform it.
Chord 2, the sharp 4 diminished chord.
So I'm going to cheat a little bit here and talk about two different chords because of how related they are, but also how beautifully this song uses both of them to contrast two different repetitions of the same melody. In my Really Cool Harmony video about All-Star, I talk about how any diminished chord can be thought of as an inversion of its kind of parent dominant chord. Specifically, I talk about how the sharp 4 diminished chord can be thought of as an inversion of the 2/7 chord. In Jingle Bell Rock, they really highlight this relationship by taking this melody, "What a bright time, it's the right time," and harmonizing it first with the sharp 4 diminished chord, leading to 1, which is one of its most common resolutions, and then immediately afterward with the 2/7 chord, leading to 5, which is one of its most common resolutions. Take a listen to how it sounds. And then hear how dramatically they change the harmony and where the song wants to go just by changing which note is on the bottom? It's the exact same set of notes both times, but by putting a different note in the bass, they effectively change the function of the chord, and they lead you to a completely different place. I really love when a song highlights so specifically how different chord choices can function in different ways. And this song does that, as I just showed, in every case except for
Chord 3, the non-functional 6 dominant.
Right after the section we were just talking about comes a great chord that we haven't heard yet in the tune. Take a listen. Now, there's nothing particularly special about a 6 dominant chord, especially in the jazz style in which this song was written, but a 6 dominant normally wants to go to 2. It might go to a 2 minor, it might go to a 2 major, it might go to a 2 dominant, but it wants to resolve. Dominants want to resolve. In fact, I made an entire video about how dominants like to resolve, and you should check it out if you want to learn more. This 6 dominant, though, does not resolve anywhere. In Jingle Bell Rock, right after this 6 dominant chord, we're just kind of smacked in the face by a 4 chord. Take a listen. What? Now, if I wanted to get really theory-ish, I could say that F major is the relative major of D minor. And D minor is a place that the A7 chord might have gone to. So I guess it's a valid substitution in that sense. But all of that is really just a bunch of language that does nothing to describe how unique this sound is. You just don't normally hear this. It's odd. Now, when a chord doesn't head where you think it's going, especially if it's a dominant chord, in this case that A7 chord whose leading tone C sharp really wants to go to D, but instead that leading tone drops down to C in the F chord. You can hear how odd it is even just when I play the chords in isolation like that. We tend to call the chord non-functional because it's not functioning in the way we would expect it to. We still have to call it a 6-7 chord, a 6 dominant chord. That's just a description of which notes it contains. But it's non-functional because it doesn't head anywhere that a dominant chord normally goes.
Chord 4, the 4 minor.
The last chord is a quick one because it's the most common cool chord in this song. But I think it still deserves a mention because it adds a weight to the scale of harmonic complexity in this song, which I always kind of thought of growing up as a pretty straightforward tune. Immediately after our non-functional 6 dominant chord, we get one of the classic harmonic devices of all time. We get a 4 chord transitioning to a 4 minor. Take a listen, you're going to instantly recognize the sound. It's a beautiful sound. Now, while there are too many tunes to even start mentioning all the ones that use this technique, I will mention that Jingle Bell Rock once again does something creative in choosing that spicy note as the melody note choice. So everyone singing along can really audiate and hear that change. This isn't some hidden kind of cool harmony in the inner voices of the keyboard part layered into the song. This is right in the melody, and it's outlined with this beautiful tonal pattern that moves from a 4 chord tonal pattern. So we're in C, Do, and we've got La, Do as a 4 tonal pattern, and then immediately after La, Do we get Le, Do. Even better, we kind of get a 4 minor 6 sound with Le, Do, Re, and then we get the end of our tune. All of these things make Jingle Bell Rock one of my favorite tunes to play when this time of year comes around. What are some of your favorite holiday tunes that have great harmonic devices? Are there any that you think go unnoticed or kind of under the radar? I would love to hear in the comments. Let me know. If you like videos like these, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. That really helps. And I'll see you soon.